Hey everybody, welcome to the True Crime Squad. I'm Kristi Brower here with my sister, co-host and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey Katie.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going. We've had quite the thunder and lightning event going on.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm calling it.
Yeah.
You can't make me say the S word. I won't.
Event,
Thunder and lightning event.
yes.
Hmm.
It's ruined. That word is ruined for us forever. I keep having this song. I have this song in my mind today. Hey, hey, we're the True Crime Squad. People say true crime around, but we're too busy podcasting
Criming.
to crime anybody down. I don't know. It's that old Monkeys song, but hey, maybe we've got a new theme song coming in. I have no idea.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
But hey, yeah, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Nice to have you all here in
Yeah.
this live. It was one of those days where some of it was so boring. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But important. And then like key things would pop out and then it would just all go back to blah again. And court's just like that, you know?
It is. Well, yeah, not everything's super exciting. I just kept wondering,
Mm-hmm.
how are the jurors like not just totally zoning out at this point? Because that was
Mm-hmm.
so long and so dry.
It was,
But
yeah. But we did uh we did start out with a great witness this morning.
hmm
I loved me some Lily Marsden, right? So
she was
she
great.
so good. So she is the deputy chief medical examiner for Utah. She's a forensic pathologist, and she was actually a fellow, like in training during Tammy's autopsy. So she
hmm
was there for Tammy's whole autopsy. She was actually there for the exhumation and was present with Tammy's body back to the medical examiner's office. You know, that continuity of evidence kind of stuff that she did
hmm
that. Um, and it was Blake on uh, Direct today, and
hmm
she is just a shining star. Lindsay Blake is something else. I
She
don't
has
think
gotten
Fremont County will
better.
keep her for very much longer. She is
Oh,
so good.
she's gotten better and better and better. And my
Yeah.
gosh, I know it. I love
Yeah.
it. I also really appreciate the respect between her and the judge.
Yes. There's a very clear, respectful relationship
hmm
there. The judge knows she's not trying to pull any bullshit.
hmm
There's a very different vibe between her and Judge Boyce than there is between Pryor and Judge Boyce. I think it's
hmm
pretty obvious.
Yeah.
The way that they speak to each other is so different
hmm
than the way that the judge is getting worn out on Pryor. You can hear it in his voice.
hmm
But so let's talk about her testimony. It was so good. So of course, they went through the whole explanation of what her credentials are and what an autopsy is and how they do that. And then she talked about, what Tammy's body appeared like when they got her there to start the autopsy. She
hmm
said she'd been embalmed and there were bruises on her chest and arms. And there was not an immediate noticeable cause of death from the external exam. This is all stuff we know and we've heard, but it's always good
hmm
to hear it from more than one person. These individuals all do their own reports when they do an exam like this. They form their own conclusions, and that doesn't mean that their conclusions don't match the other people they're doing the autopsy with. It's a way to um, look at multiple perspectives and make
Yeah.
sure that they're not missing anything, which I think is really good.
hmm
Um, let's see. Then she talked about, the dissection process, which I'm not going to go into because it's kind of gross. Um,
Yeah. We've
but
already
they
heard it.
did, yeah, but they did determine her cause of death uh, through the internal investigation, which showed
Mhm.
that, she had a lot of fluid in her lungs, pulmonary edema, and
Mhm.
fluid in her trachea. And Marsden talked about, the things that can cause that, like
Mhm.
pneumonia and heart failure, and then non natural causes like asphyxia, drownings, and drug overdose.
Yeah.
And, they did toxicology, they sent off the labs, all of that stuff. They found fluoxetine in her liver, which was expected to be there 'cause she's been on it for a long time.
Mhm.
There was no explanation of her cause of death in toxicology. No essential oils did not kill her, as we all know.
Are you sure? Are you
Right.
sure it wasn't
Because,
homeopathics?
of course, Pryor had to go into all that bullshit
Mhm.
again. Marsden had the information that Tammy might have been experiencing seizures or shaking
Yeah.
that came directly from Chad, so it means shit all.
Oh, I
Marsden
love that
said,
she was like real seizures, you know,
yeah,
having seizures like
yeah,
is not just yeah, the I love that she really
explains them.
qualified it and yeah, that it's not just occasionally seeing someone being a little shaky. That's not what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
She also said that it's really unusual for a woman of 49 to spontaneously develop seizures without a reason, like a brain tumor, which she did not have.
Mhm.
Her heart was normal, structurally normal, normal size. All of her
Yeah.
organs were normal. So she said they determined that manner of death was homicide, that, someone had stopped her breathing because there was no medical cause for a stop of her breathing. Um, she said that she's conducted about 2,000 autopsies in her career and that she separates asphyxia into 4 categories. So the exclusion of oxygen, like choking or drowning or bag over the face, neck
Mhm.
compression, like hanging, chemical asphyxia, like carbon monoxide poisoning, and then mechanical, something placed on the chest that prevents breathing. Which she
Ooh.
obviously thinks that Tammy's death was mechanical asphyxia.
Mhm.
She said that the bruises on Tammy's arms were consistent with someone being restrained. Blake, you have to get into the freaking bruises again. She asked if
Mhm.
there was anything done to determine the age of the bruises, and she said, yeah, they took samples of the bruises and looked at them under a microscope, and she called the bruises acute, which meant there
Yeah.
was just bleeding and no inflammatory response,
Mhm.
which means that those bruises occurred right before or shortly after death
Mhm.
because her body did not have time for inflammation to form around
Yeah.
those bruises. So she
Yeah.
called them perimortem bruises,
Mhm.
which just means like right around the time of death.
Mhm. Yeah.
Then we talked about lividity. We all got a good laugh out of that because we know Pryor was probably saying lividity, lividity, lividity to himself 100 times in his head so that he could say it correctly outside or
Listen,
out loud.
I have suspected for a while that Pryor watches our show.
Oh, have you?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure.
and I will give you further proof.
What's that?
Well, I'll go way back to jury selection when we were like, John, don't make that
True.
joke. Do not make that joke again about ex wives. You have ex
Yes.
wives on your jury. What are you doing? Did he
Yeah.
make another joke about ex wives? No, he did not.
Did he tell a story that was even worse? Yes, he did.
That's true.
But he did change
But,
it up. That's true. He did
okay,
change it up.
piece of evidence number one. Piece of evidence number two. There's actually a lot more in between, but this is what I was thinking about today. Uh, we have given him a lot of shit about saying lapidity, and he has quit saying it. Those are just 2 pieces. There were some other things that came up for me today in the way he speaks to people and the way he speaks to the judge. He's suddenly calling the judge, Your Honor. He
That's
also
true.
today called a witness officer and then said, Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And fixed that. Listen to me.
Either
Now
that
I
or
know
super hot girlfriend is giving him lessons at home at night.
I thought, and maybe it's the super hot girlfriend that watches our show. Maybe it is. And if so,
Maybe it
congrats
is.
on
I
being
don't know.
super hot.
Hey,
Hey, if
we
you
do
got it,
our
flaunt
best
it.
to serve the public.
Right. But here we are. He's also laid off at binging. He
He
really
has.
he has been correcting himself on everything we pointed out, Lee. You're correct.
I
So
mean,
that's why
after
I think
Balance said did you say binging or banging?
Just a
Might have
bing.
given him a clue that he was wrong about that. So great.
Anyway, that's all. I'm absolutely certain he actually doesn't listen to us, but it cracks me up that the stuff that we hit on, then he doesn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to think it's a super hot girlfriend, that she's just in the background. So if so,
Right.
congratulations and thanks for being here. That's all.
Right. Someone's got to help this fool, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. So they talk about the lividity that's on the back of Tammy's body. Um, they talked about the coroner system and how the coroners in Idaho don't need any medical training, and basically why they missed this and then had to exhume Tammy's body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when Marsden, determines whether or not to do an autopsy, she always adds in additional factors like police reports, medical records, actual evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Then they talked about rigor mortis and
Mm-hmm.
how, the stiffening of joints and muscles in the body that happen a few hours after death. Um, Marsden said that when she hears somebody talk about a body being cold or stiff, she generally thinks that they've been dead about 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That that's really when that begins.
Mm-hmm.
And that there are a lot of different levels of how stiff a person becomes and
Yeah.
stuff. And so she said usually, just a layperson that she would, say that that's around a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she said also that she would not at that point expect bruises to be showing up on the body.
Yeah.
It's too soon. And
Mm-hmm.
so it makes sense that they didn't see the bruises
Mm-hmm.
when when the coroner and the deputy coroner were there, that they didn't see the bruises because it took them some time to come up because there isn't blood flowing through the body
Sure.
anymore. It's
Yeah.
one of the reasons we know they're perimortem bruises.
It really helps to understand that. And even when Pryor was hitting on her with, you can't know when the bruises were there. I'm like, yeah, but the bruises were there, John.
Right.
So even if they weren't there, let's pretend like they weren't made at the moment when all the professionals are saying that they suspect that they were. They
Mm-hmm.
were there.
Yeah, they were. And if they were old bruises, then why didn't the coroner see them?
Yeah.
It just, anything to be subterfuge, anything to throw doubt. But I don't think that after listening to Dr. Marsden speak today, there was much doubt.
Yeah. No, me
One of
neither.
the things I loved that she said is that she said that she looked at Tammy's medical records from 2007 to 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That
I
was a
love
lot
that
further
too.
back than we'd heard before.
Yes, I thought that too. And that,
Yeah.
yeah, and how thorough that was. And that
Mm-hmm.
also, no seizures, no low blood pressures that were like medically problematic. A lot of
Right.
people have
Just
low blood pressure,
low
but not
normal.
like,
Well,
yeah, low
Tammy was
normal.
running and exercising. It would make her blood pressure a little lower.
Hmm.
It was a
For
good
sure.
thing to have low normal blood pressure.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
Blake asked her some great questions. I love how she preempts Pryor. It's hilarious. She asked if Dr. Marsden would suspect someone who had, been diagnosed with anemia in the past to just suddenly pass away. She said no. Um, she also asked if she would expect someone using homeopathic medicines to just suddenly pass away. She
Hmm.
also said no.
Hmm.
And said,
Yeah.
the bruises, a person can't bruise. And
Hmm.
so the bruises happened as the death was occurring, and it took a while for them to come up because the blood wasn't flowing. It,
Hmm.
it made a, I felt like she did a lot better job of explaining all of that to lay people
Hmm.
than any of the other doctors have.
Yeah.
She did a great job of making this clear.
I
They
thought so
talked
too.
about, yeah, they talked about seizures and
Uh
about
huh.
how Tammy had no medical history of seizures, and that, she talked about grand mal seizures and,
Hmm.
obvious seizures, and that you don't just start having seizures at 49. This is something that usually starts in childhood, unless
Well,
there's a medical reason, which she didn't have.
well, and they can see usually if you're having seizures, there are some signs in your brain,
There
as
can
well
be,
as
yeah.
potentially your teeth, your bladder. There are
Mm-hmm.
some ways that they can see that you've been having seizures if you've
Right.
been having seizures. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was just nothing.
Yeah.
So and then that was it. I mean, Blake only talked to her for about 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So of course we get Pryor on the stand, and he starts with the really unimportant information, like how long did the exhumation take?
Mm-hmm.
She said 2 or 3 hours. That she was
Were you
present,
there? Were any of Chad's or Tammy's family there?
right?
Still no. Still
She,
not illegal.
yeah,
Dude,
still
why?
a criminal investigation, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Just anything to throw shade.
Yeah.
Um,
I just don't think that's landing with the jury. I just don't.
well, this being mad that they discovered that Tammy was murdered and being mad that they discovered the children murdered in Chad's backyard
Mm-mm,
just doesn't really play, dude.
mm-mm.
Like, you're mad that these crimes were revealed? Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So, so Pryor asks about the suspicious circumstances that Marsden was made aware of around why Tammy was exhumed.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that there was a deceased husband, and that Tammy's husband had recently remarried, and the fact that there were two children missing.
Mm-hmm.
Like this whole story we all know. Blah 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 blah. Pryor, why? What's the point?
He acts like that's not good enough.
I know he does, and I
He
just
acts
don't
like that's not
understand why
good
it wasn't.
enough. I
Yeah.
just don't understand because the judge signed an order.
Right.
Obviously, and I didn't know this, but the order was that she had to be exhumed, processed, and back in the ground in 24 hours, which it sounds like she was, that they followed the
Hmm.
court order.
Yeah.
Uh, but
I think
that,
that's pretty standard.
hmm well, yeah, they don't want to leave those graves open for very long.
No.
But it's a strange thing to me that we always hear this piece of, that comes across as anger that Tammy was exhumed. It's a bad look. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It is. It's like, oh, we're mad that you discovered that she was murdered. Yeah.
hmm
Sounds like what your creepy client would say.
It's true. He at least
So
said exhumation today instead of dug up or ripped from the ground or
he
other
did.
dramatic things. Yeah.
Dramatic and disrespectful.
hmm
He
Yeah,
wanted to
Gran for
know
sure. Her husband
what.
predicting her death should be a thing too. Agree.
Yeah, most definitely.
hmm
Then he asked why Dr. Marsden thought that Tammy's death was suspicious, and she said it was because she was a healthy 39-year-old woman and there was no explanation. Like, hey, she wasn't sickly and just coughed and threw up and expired. No, not true.
hmm
Then they go through the whole bruises thing again, which is just dumb. And then he tries to discredit her, wanting to know if this is her first autopsy she had done outside of a lab environment, because she was a professor teaching
Right.
for a long time, and she's like, no, I'd done about 500 at that point.
I loved that.
No matter what the number prior, it's more than you. So
500. I'm sure that was like, oh, okay. Yeah, right.
yeah. Well, and then he went into some ridiculous bullshit about heart rhythms and sudden cardiac death and pulmonary edema, and he's just talking gibberish. You can tell that
But
the
a
doctor's like,
17-year-old basketball player can just
what?
drop dead.
Yeah. He asked about heart rhythm disorders and the foam
hmm
found in Tammy's airways, and wanted to know if the foam could have caused the heart to stop. Oh my god. He's just making shit up. Like,
hmm
so she says, well, if you have a sudden cardiac death, you don't have time for there to be pulmonary edema. You just
hmm
die. Well, because he said, well, I mean, with pulmonary edema, her heart just stopped. And she was like, no, she was asphyxiated and it took several minutes for her heart to stop, long
Yeah.
enough for that pulmonary edema to form.
hmm
He kept throwing out medical terms and shit that he clearly does
Didn't
not
understand.
understand
Yeah.
at all.
hmm
He also asked if there was a notation in Tammy's medical records that there was a history of heart issues, which there is in relatives, but not the kind of heart issues that just cause sudden death.
Right.
You know. Then he wants to know if there's any damage to the bones or muscles of Tammy's neck, which he knows there's not. She said there's not, but she still had to say it again. There was no sign that her neck had been squeezed, no indication of chemical asphyxiation. He wanted to know if she'd cross-checked about those essential oils and homeopathic remedies. She said that they have a very low chance of overdose, and there was no evidence at the scene that she was overtaking anything.
And also that they don't even have a methodology for testing that because it's such an unlikely scenario.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. And then he asks about mechanical asphyxia, and this is when he got his ass kicked and actually made life worse for himself. You know, Pryor wants to know if this is like when you're working under your car and the car falls on your chest. And he wanted to know if they'd checked under her fingernails for sign of struggle, because the bruises could be sign of struggle. But she said the bruises could be sign of struggle, but you know there was no DNA under her fingernails because her body had been cleaned, for burial.
Yeah.
But then she asks about, we haven't quite gotten to the mic drop point yet here, but we're getting there. Wanting to know if this is a subjective determination by her. And she says yes, and wants to know about her medical records again, and that she, looked at primary care and urgent care records from 2007 to 2019, and that she never saw any treatment for low blood pressure. Here's a clue. Low blood pressure also does not kill you.
No.
All by itself. No, you don't die of low blood pressure. Then they talked about, Gross had to talk about what was in her stomach, and Pryor always has to bring shit up. But one of the things, and it was right through this conversation, was he said, so you're telling me that someone put those bruises on her arms at the same time as holding her chest down so she couldn't breathe? And she said, well, maybe there were two people. And he goes, so if there were two people, they could have done that. And she was like, yeah, that could have been two people. That somebody held her down while somebody else, sat on her chest or, And I was like, that was hilarious because I don't think you were trying to get to the point in which Chad and Alex were in the room, but, that's what you got.
But here we are. Yeah. There was no damage to her ribs, no.
No.
Or her hyoid.
There wouldn't necessarily have had to been if a heavy person laid on top of her while someone else pinned her down, she would not be able to expand her lungs and she would asphyxiate. I mean, it's not like your diaphragm is that strong to lift up like an entire human being. Yeah. So then they talked about stomach contents. Blake asked if the contents in her stomach would tell you whether or not she has thrown up. Marsden said no. Then Blake asked if a Big Mac appeared in Tammy's stomach, which I thought was really funny. Because we know there's been that whole bullshit about how Garth brought her dinner and blah, blah, blah. Marsden said no, there definitely wasn't. She asked about the dizzy or fainting spells, and that she knew that information came from a police report that contained information that came from who? Murderous husband Chad Daybell. So she didn't take that into much consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Pryor keeps, well, did you even know that her husband said? No, yeah, bitch, we knew. Yeah. But he also is suspected of murdering her. So
right.
There's a level there of not listening.
Yeah. Like and also you can't just diagnose your family with, seizures or deadly anemia or whatever. Like there's no medical proof of any of that. So
yeah.
Then she kind of asked her a little bit about if she was aware that the missing kids belonged to Chad's new wife, and like they had a lot of suspicions around this. Then they talked about the term heavy lungs because Pryor never stops saying it like it's an actual diagnosis. It really isn't. It's just that she said heavy lungs were the result of the cause of death, but not the cause of death.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that she said, there was no sign of anything in her medical records. And there was also no indication, um, you know, of any other kind of asphyxia. She said that you can smother someone without leaving hardly any signs at all, like
Mm-hmm.
smothering with a pillow or a plastic bag over the head or putting a weight on the chest.
It makes me think about that serial killer that killed all those people, the old people at the assisted
Oh,
living center
yes, in
in
Texas.
Texas. I cannot say his name to save my life right now.
I cannot think of it, no.
But and he killed like 25 people before they figured out that he was killing people
Yeah, he was just putting
because
pillows over old ladies' faces.
mhm. And they were in their
Yeah.
80s and 90s and they were just found collapsed on their beds and deceased and
Yeah.
yeah. Now it's going to drive me crazy that I can't think of his name, but it'll
I
come.
know.
I ordered
I
it,
can't
so it'll
believe it
be
because
here at some point.
we covered both of his trials. Billy Shamirmir.
Thank you. I knew it started with a
Damn
C.
it.
Yes, Shamir
Yeah.
Mir. And then he was
Hmm.
murdered in prison.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
And it took 2 trials to convict that fool.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then murdered in prison. Wild.
Mhm.
And then,
They can get petechiae, but not necessarily. Yeah.
yeah, if it's not a lot of pressure, you don't necessarily get petechiae.
Mhm.
Petechiae usually happens from hanging or from manual strangulation with hands around the neck.
Mhm.
So, a couple of mic drops out of Blake that I just appreciated. One was she asked if the bruises could indicate that there was more than one person there, and Marsden said, "Yep." Could also indicate someone kneeling on the chest and holding someone down, which I have said forever.
Mhm.
I think that
That big
bruise on her
bruise.
chest
Yep.
is a knee.
The knee.
Yeah. Um, and then Blake ends with one last question. In your experience, do dead bodies roll out of bed? Marsden says no, and she says, "I have no further questions." And then Boyce refuses to let Pryor redirect or recross.
Boy, he's really started limiting the recross. Have you noticed that? The last week
Yes.
or so, that has really scaled back.
Well,
Yeah.
my God. I mean, is this trial ever going to end if he doesn't?
Well,
And
and
it's just
truly, if the
ridiculous
prosecution
stuff.
doesn't open any new doors during the redirect, there's no reason for a recross.
Yeah.
And he was kind of
No.
allowing it for a while, and I think he finally went, fuck, we gotta quit. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, because Pryor was doing with every single fucking witness. My God.
Hmm.
But that whole, by the way, do dead bodies normally roll out of bed? No. No further questions.
Hmm. Cool, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So then a kind of funny thing happened where the state calls their next witness, and it's Rick Wright, who is with the FBI, and Detective Hermosillo walks in the room.
Hmm.
And Pryor, trying to be jokey, but also just making it weird. That looks like Officer Hermosillo, unless Rick Wright has really bulked up or something. So apparently they'd gotten it wrong out in the hall. So Hermosillo left and Wright came in. It was just funny. So he is a contractor special investigator for the FBI in Pocatello.
Hmm.
And he was an FBI special agent for 24 years. So he still contracts with the FBI, is basically what that
Hmm.
means. So he worked, he did a lot of different kind of work. But the Rexburg police contacted the FBI on November 27th of 2019
Hmm.
about a missing child named JJ Vallow because he's under 12.
Hmm.
And that's considered, what did he call it? Tender age?
I'm not sure.
That children under 12 are a priority for the FBI
Hmm.
because of the Federal Kidnapping Act.
Hmm.
And that particularly children under 12. And JJ was 7 at the time.
Yeah.
So they started out with it classified as a kidnapping because they couldn't find him, didn't know where he was. And
Hmm.
then he goes into a huge amount of the cellular data, location data. It's massive
Oh,
that
yeah.
the FBI worked on.
But is it voluminous?
Oh, it is voluminous.
It's
It
beyond
never
voluminous.
fucking ends. But
Mm-hmm.
so he, they kind of went back to the beginning of when all of this occurred and the stuff that they found in their on their devices. He talked about the Alex Cox's phone and Homer J. Maximus account and his GPS and cell phone data.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Alex's phone arrived in Rexburg on September 1st of 2019. Um, and it went to an apartment complex, unit number 175.
Mm-hmm.
And it stayed at 175 until the evening of September 5th, when the phone started spending the night at apartment 107, which was his apartment. So he came and stayed with Lori for a few days and then moved into his own place.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go to September 8th of 2019. So this is the day that Lori and Alex and JJ and Tylee went to Yellowstone Park.
Mm-hmm.
And they follow his cell phone through this trip.
Mm-hmm.
Like they start at Maverick in the morning, and then they go to the west entrance of the park to Old Faithful Lodge, Old Faithful Rim, Old Faithful parking lot. The thing you got to know is that there is only cell service at certain places in Yellowstone Park.
Oh,
There
yeah.
used to not be any, and now you can get a little.
Yeah, definitely better than it was. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of places that just don't ping.
Right, right. And then it sort of pinged in at Buckaroo Barbecue. I think we've eaten there. That's creepy. In West Yellowstone, which is the
Never
town that's on
again.
the west entrance of the park.
Yeah.
At 6:45 to 7:02 p.m. on the 8th. They also have surveillance video at the park entrance that caught Alex, Lori, Tylee, and JJ entering the park. And they have, and then they do have some photos, and y'all have seen them before probably, of Tylee and JJ and Alex in one photo and Lori and JJ in another at Old Faithful.
Yeah.
And that photo at Old Faithful is the last known photo of Tylee.
That's this one right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were initially concerned that something had happened to Tylee in Yellowstone, as we know,
Mm-hmm.
because she was never seen after that trip.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, gearing up to do searches in Yellowstone. And actually, we know that some like cadaver dog searches were done in Yellowstone
They
later in
had,
the year.
yeah, they had started sending cadaver dogs out in May in Yellowstone,
Yeah, because the
searching for
problem
the
was
kids.
this was, when they get this case is the end of November. Well, you can't even go into the park in the end of November, and it's full of snow. You wouldn't be able to find anything. But they were preparing for, like a big search
Mm-hmm.
before they figured out some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So then on Monday, September 9th, which they believe is the day that either Tylee was killed the evening of the 8th or the morning of the 9th. So at 2:42 a.m., Alex's phone was in Lori's apartment. And then at 4:37 a.m., his phone was in his apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So he had been over there in the middle of the night. Then, let's see. So that was one thing that they knew, is that something was going on there. That evening, they went back to Lori's apartment. Then his phone went to the Maverick in Rexburg, and then went back to Lori's apartment, and then went to his apartment, and then went back to Lori's apartment, and back to his apartment. There was a lot of activity going on kind of in the middle of the night. They also prepared a timeline of Tylee's activities based on her digital media, financial transactions, and
Yeah.
the things that she did on her phone.
Mm-hmm.
And the last known location for her was at apartment 175 in Rexburg at 8:37 p.m. on September 8th. Oh, Sandy has entered the chat here. So then more on September 9th at 9 a.m., his apartment, leaves apartment 107 in Rexburg. And at 9:15 he arrives at Chad Daybell's house. So we're assuming at this point Tylee is deceased and he is transporting her body. At 11:45 a.m., his phone is in the area of the Daybell residence. Do you know what else happened at 11:48 a.m. that morning? Chad sent the raccoon text to Tammy. Alex was there when that text was sent.
Yep.
Which, that was the first time, I don't know if that's the first time that's been said, but that was the first time that really registered in my head, that he sent that text to explain what they had already done.
Me too. For some reason, I thought I had it in my head that text came in first thing in the morning.
No, it was at like 11:53 a.m. And they have data points. They have a whole bunch of data points right there on Chad's property from 9:15 a.m. To like 11:52. Right around the same time that text was sent.
Yeah.
Alex was there. And then, of course, he shows up at Del Taco in Rexburg, which has made it hard. Poor Del Taco went out of business. Nobody could eat there anymore. I don't know if that's why, but they did, didn't they?
No, they're still there. They just they're always begging people to come and eat there.
Oh.
And I always wonder, do they know that a lot of people probably aren't eating there because of this?
Right. They need to run some kind of campaign or like do a fundraiser for Tammy Daybell's foundation or something and like own it, recognize it. Would probably help them because it's creeped a lot of people out.
Well, I have not eaten there, I'll tell you that, and I won't. I can't. I'm horrified.
The idea that after they did this, whatever they did that morning, that he was hungry and went to Del Taco for lunch is disgusting.
It's really, really horrifying.
Tells you what a psychopath Alex was, honestly.
I just wanted to point one thing out from the text. Chad said to Tammy at 11:56, "Gonna shower now and go right for a while at BYU." Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Pryor made a big deal today of saying, "Did you know that Chad Daybell goes to the college to write every morning?" Is this morning?
No.
He was going to shower and go right at BYU? Well, by the time he took a shower and drove from there all the way into the college, we're looking at least 12:30. Is that morning?
Yeah. No.
I mean, it's a small thing, but, it's literally not the thing he's saying.
No, it isn't. Not at all. And it lines up exactly with this. Because there are a bunch of data points of Alex arriving at the house. He's behind the house. He's by a gate on the northwest corner of the property. Then he's behind the house again, 10:39, 10:47 behind the house. And then at 11:45, he leaves the residence. So right about the time that he leaves the house is when Chad sends the text. So like they're done and he's covering his ass as Alex is headed to Del Taco. So they showed an overhead image of the property and kind of pointed out, and it's all in the fire pit area, of all these data points of Alex's phone. Well, we know Chad was there because he sent the stupid text that he was out there burying a raccoon and burning limbs.
Yeah.
He was literally in the same place. So this idea that he was off writing at the BYU Idaho Library is bullshit.
Totally.
I didn't connect it today, or till today, that they literally do have evidence that is the case. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
That Chad would have been better off to never send that text. That text literally is a key element of solving this case, of finding those kids.
Bonafide, it's a good question. Was Chad's phone ever located at BYU that day? They've never said, that I've heard.
They've never said, but you know what? Chad's phone usually had location services turned off.
Turned off, yeah.
He was smarter than Alex, and he just didn't tell Alex because then Alex could be the fall guy. Because the location stuff on Chad is minimal. But I mean, that's an easy fix if you turn off location on your phone. And he obviously knew that.
Yep.
So then we go to Sunday, September 22nd, which is the night that JJ died. And it talks about how from, uh, let's see, starting at 11:17 a.m., Alex's phone moved back and forth between his apartment and Lori's apartment a whole bunch of times until, um, let's see, until 9:56 p.m., which is about the time probably that he carried JJ off, if you recall, because he was being a problem, and so Lori had him take him. So then, on Monday, September 23rd, here's Alex's locations. So the day that they buried JJ. From 12:11 a.m. to 9:41 a.m., he was in his apartment. Then, here's the thing. He took JJ and killed him. He left his apartment at 9:56 p.m. and he was there until 9:41 a.m. the next morning, as far as their data can tell. And he didn't go to Lori's apartment. He travels to Chad Daybell's residence.
Yeah.
And from 9:55 a.m. to 10:12 a.m., he's at Chad's house.
Yeah.
He's in the vicinity of the residence. He's near the garage. He's by the pond. He's by the pond again. He's by the front of the house. He's near the front of the house again. And then he's at an intersection on Salem Road. And he's heading south, which is toward Rexburg. And at 10:22 a.m., he's at his apartment.
Yeah.
So he was gone less than an hour.
Yeah.
That morning, which tells me that Chad was out there, doing that thing he does, digging a grave.
With,
Because he
I'm
must
going to
have already had it
assume,
dug.
right. He must have been out there digging it with like a wooden spoon, a teaspoon, maybe a hatchet. I don't know, because he doesn't know how to use a shovel. But he was using something.
That's what we've heard. But he obviously had that grave dug and prepared.
I had a thought about that
all
today.
they had to do was put that little boy's body in the ground and bury him.
I thought about that today, thinking about how, because he had to cut through tree roots. Like it was a job to get that hole dug. Obviously, Chad had worked his ass off on it. But it wasn't very deep. And they've said that many, many times in the shallow grave that JJ was buried in. And it got me thinking, do you think that they intended to move JJ or incinerate JJ at some point? But at that moment, that's all the time they had, so they clear back under that tree where Chad didn't think anybody would be disturbing that area, that they would bury him there, especially because they put movable things on top of him.
They did.
That would be...
I think that's very possible, that this was we're going to get this done quick. Also, Chad is just like a big old sack of mashed potatoes, so do you think he was really that good at digging a grave?
No.
That's hard work.
Well, especially because he did have to chop through tree roots and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't an easy task to get it just where he had it.
And there was no way he was going to get it deep enough for an actual grave.
No.
Right? Language of Horses says it wasn't deep because Chad is lazy. I mean, it's very clear that Chad is extremely lazy, so I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, I want to see that. Lion says, Nate showed a newspaper item with a photo where Chad was interviewed about being a sexton, and they had him with a shovel in the photo.
I have it. I saved it the other day. Let me see if I can find it.
No, the ground would not have been frozen then. This was at the end of September. So it would have still been diggable. Just cracks me up. Oh man, we need that picture of him with a shovel. Please put that up on the screen during closing arguments.
Right.
That's pretty great. Okay, let's see here. So they have all of these data points where they can pinpoint where Alex's phone was on Chad's property. let's see. They talked about the days that they could pinpoint Alex's phone at Chad's property. So Friday,
Mm-hmm.
September 6th, Monday, September 9th, Monday, September 23rd, and Wednesday, September 25th. So on the 6th and the 25th, he was out there for some reason, making a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But that was in September.
Mm-hmm.
The other
Here
thing
you
that
go.
Alex. Oh, have you got it?
Here's your fuel with the shovel.
God damn it, look at it. He's down in a grave, digging a grave. That's awesome.
Sorry about it, Chad.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Clearly, you do know what to do with a shovel. Yeah. I can think of a few things to do with a shovel and Chad, but that's just me. So then we find out also that on the day that they buried JJ, a little later in the afternoon, Alex visits Dan's window tinting.
Yeah.
And he goes there again on September 25th, and he is there for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like while they tinted
Mm-hmm.
the Jeep windows. It's pretty clear that he went and got those windows tinted before he attempted the shooting on Brandon Boudreaux to try to conceal who was in the vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, he showed an image of the Jeep with tinted windows, and there are 2 receipts inside the Jeep for Los Favoritos or whatever in Mesa, Arizona for October 1st, 2019, and a Chick-fil-A in Ammon, Idaho on October 18th of 2019. So we know he was in Mesa on October 1st, and someone tried to kill Brandon Boudreaux in Gilbert on October 2nd.
Yep.
So there's a tracking this. I wish I had my whiteboard and red string, but this timeline is just getting clearer and clearer, I think. I do understand why they're doing it this way. It just gets tedious sometimes, but it's awesome.
Well, for the jury who has not heard this story 100 times, like a lot of us
Right.
have,
Yeah.
I'm sure they need that much repetition. This is the Jeep, by the way.
Yes. Look how dark those windows are.
Mm-hmm.
They're illegal, actually, in Idaho. They're so dark.
I'm guessing this is post,
Yeah.
post-tinting. Yeah.
But that's one reason why Brandon couldn't see who shot at him or who was in the Jeep because of these tinted windows.
Yeah.
So Alex got one thing right. Let's see. They also talked about Alex's prepaid phones. He bought one on October 8th and another one on September 25th in Idaho Falls, and then immediately associated it with Homer J. Maximus, so that's not much of a burner phone. And then on Tuesday, October 8th, another prepaid phone was purchased from Walmart in Rexburg that he was associated with. And then they have the receipts. Kept the receipts. 2 of the prepaid phones.
Really, just phenomenally terrible criminals. Good.
Yeah.
Good. We like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing we know is that Alex's phone stayed at Lori's apartment on September 30th, October 1st, and October 2nd. You mean like when he drove down and tried to kill Brandon Boudreaux? So he was using a burner at that point.
Yep.
And his regular device did not leave Idaho.
Yeah.
But he took a burner and connected it to his email address. Like, what the... Jesus Christ. So then they talked about him going out to the Unified Sportsman's Gun Club, which is the shooting range outside of Rexburg. He went on September 3rd, September 26th, and September 27th. And what's his name? Who are we talking to? This FBI guy talked about how the GPS wasn't super accurate out there, which really cracked me up because I used to live out on a volcano out there, not very far
Mhm.
from this gun range. And yeah, cell phone service out there sucks. GPS sucks. And he's like, well, but he was in the low in the area. Well, you know what's in that area? Sagebrush. That's what's in that area. The
Mhm.
only thing even remotely close to that gun club is the Madison County landfill.
Mhm.
So, he was either shooting guns, walking around in the sagebrush, or at the dump.
Mhm.
There's nothing else
No.
out there for miles and miles all the way around.
No. Yeah.
So that's most definitely where you, um, if you're out there, that's what you're doing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you need to connect a phone to email in order to use text? I don't think so. But I mean, you also could have created a burner email,
Right.
a fake one, you
Mhm.
know, a fake email that isn't connected to any other email connected to you. I mean, there are definitely ways to do that.
Mhm.
Other criminals have figured that out.
Mhm. But Mr. Innocent here in court, how many innocent people do you know that have a whole bunch of burner phones?
Yeah.
It That doesn't speak of innocence to me in any
Mm-mm.
way. It makes me think immediately that you're trying to do some bullshit.
Well, according to Pryor, it just speaks of infidelity. He had a second phone for his affair.
Is that
He
why
tries
Alex
to
had a second phone?
admit to that, like that makes it all okay.
Uh-huh. Well, it's kind of like the Alex Murdaugh approach of, okay, so listen, I'm a bad guy and I did the bad things, but I
Hmm.
didn't do this bad thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what they're trying, and it is just I don't think it's working.
no.
So they talked about that he'd been out there, practicing, not really getting any better. Um, and then he went to the Fremont County Sportsman's Club shooting range about 3 different times, um, on October 7th. And then October 8th went back out to the Unified Sportsman's Club.
Mhm.
Um, he was really trying,
Mhm.
but, because we know on October 9th is when he shot at Tammy unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
And so then he went back for more practice.
Mhm.
On October 12th and 13th, he went to the Fremont County Sportsman's Club and was there
Mhm.
for around 2 hours each of those days.
Can you imagine how much ammo he must have gone through?
I cannot.
I was thinking about that today because ammo's expensive,
Yeah, it is.
and especially with the guns that he was using. And I was thinking, my God, he probably went through a lot of ammo with all of this practice. It sure didn't pay off, but good,
Yeah.
good, good. We like
Yeah.
it.
So then on the 15th of October, he went out to the shooting range and then again in the evening. He also went back and forth between his apartment and Lori's.
Mhm.
And there was a stop at Chad Daybell's house for 15 minutes in the afternoon.
Mhm.
And see, he was going to the Fremont shooting range. So, I mean, Chad's house is between his house and the shooting range in Fremont County. So,
Mhm.
but he had stopped, there was a 15-minute stop there.
Yeah.
So then he
Yeah.
went to Sportsman's Warehouse in Ammon. Uh, and then his device was located there, and he had receipts. This is where he bought some camo pants and gloves, a Dr. Pepper, and then some other items that were purchased in cash. Weirdly,
Mhm.
he also got a camo beanie. Um, oh yeah, he bought those flip mitt fingerless gloves,
Mhm.
and a dark gray 3-hole ski mask was purchased that night.
I liked
Maybe
how when
things.
Blake asked the agent if he's familiar with Southeast Idaho and what the climate could be like in October, and Pryor
Yeah,
had a fit.
yeah, he did.
Objection! Objection!
Yeah. Like, we don't all know it's cold as fuck here in October? Like, come on.
He had some wild objections today. One of them was objection, argumentative. And the judge is like,
He's
overruled?
just making shit up. They're saying
Yeah.
something I don't want them to say, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
throw something out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he bought the dumb frog tog pants, rain pants, and
Mm-hmm.
he had searched for those on Google too. But I mean, you think about it, the night they killed Tammy Daybell, how cold it must have been, and he was on foot at least for part of that. He was
Mm-hmm.
probably dressed in all this camo and black shit.
Mm-hmm.
They found the pants.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The frog
when they
tog pants.
from
Yeah.
his apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. So then they did talk about the evening of October 9th, and Alex's device was located near the Daybell residence. You know, kind of like he pulled off to the side of the road. They even figured out where he parked
Mm-hmm.
based on what was nearby and where his phone was. They figured out where he parked.
And where you could have actually pulled off. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
because there
that's a
weren't many
busy road.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
not a
highway.
road that you can just, you can't even get your mail on that road. You have to go to the post office to get it from a P.O. box because
Yeah,
there's nowhere on that highway for mail people to stop, let alone Alex to stop and park his truck. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Um, but obviously, there's one spot near a canal, and that's where his device registered. So when he parked his vehicle and got
Mm-hmm.
out and walked to Daybell's house, left his phone in the vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
shot at Tammy, then ran his ass back to his car because he missed,
Uh-huh.
or his gun jammed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, they had said initially they'd said he'd parked at the Salem church. Now it's near the Salem church. So
yeah,
that was kind of new information, actually.
they've narrowed it to a little bit more specific.
Hmm. Because, yes, that would have been a 2.6 mile walk, Al, correct. But sounds like he actually got a little closer. Yeah.
Hmm. He did, yeah. Let's see. On October 9th, he had purchased a new burner phone, and
Hmm.
there were 10 text messages between his new phone and Chad's phone between 7:13 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Like, okay, this is when Tammy's going to be home. And then later, you dumb fucker, you missed, or, whatever. Like,
Hmm.
they were discussing the situation, and
Yeah.
he was on a burner phone. Why, if that was just innocuous, why would he not have been just using his regular device?
Hmm.
So then, on October
Shannon,
6th, oh,
hold on. Let's adjust. Shannon has such an excellent question. And
okay.
I have mulled this over many times myself, Shannon. She said, how do you think Chad would have explained it had Alex succeeded?
It's a great question.
Some random stranger shows up at this sweet little librarian's house and guns her down in the driveway?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think Chad wouldn't have cared at all how it was explained because he
Hmm.
was home. He had
Yep.
an alibi. So who cares? I don't think he gave a
Hmm.
flying fuck if Alex got blamed
But
and if he
he
got
was
caught.
home and Lori was out of town.
Yeah,
So it would have been perfect. Hmm.
it would have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, out there, there's no cameras. There's not much in the way of streetlights. Like
Yeah.
it would have been tough to solve to begin with.
Yeah. But right. No one gets gunned down in the middle of rural Idaho. Absolutely. I mean, it would have been the most
I mean,
shocking.
sometimes, but yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah,
In this
random
case, yeah.
violence. Maybe they were still trying to blame the poor bipolar kid that lives nearby. You know,
Mm,
right, Tracy? And Chad would have just said it was prophesied in his dreams that he always knew.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. A hunter misfired. Yeah. Maybe. Right?
maybe. I
Because we
mean,
wouldn't have known it was a masked man in the driveway. We would have
yeah,
just known that this sweet woman was gunned down in the driveway. We wouldn't have known anything
yeah,
about likely any clues about who did it.
yeah.
It's really
Becky
weird.
says we're freezing. Is anyone else seeing that? Or it might just be on your end, Becky. Sometimes
She
it's not
says,
us.
yeah, she said some other channels are freezing too. It could be that YouTube's having some trouble. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Or maybe your device needs restarted. Sometimes that happens too.
maybe. You may try Facebook or Twitter too, because we're streaming there as well. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I think as long as he and Lori had alibis, I think that's all he cared about.
yep, I think so too.
So let's see. Then where were we? Oh, then Alex's device takes a trip to Hurricane, Utah on October 16th. And on October 17th, his device goes to the Las Vegas airport.
Yeah.
And then on October 18th, the device is back at home.
Yeah.
Lori flew to Hawaii from Las Vegas on October 17th. So he drove her to the airport.
Yeah. Why do you think she flew from Vegas? Just because it was so much
Just
cheaper?
more subterfuge.
Yeah,
She didn't want to
maybe.
fly out of Idaho Falls because that would have shown she had been nearby when on shortly before Tammy died.
Mm-hmm.
By flying out of Las Vegas, it made it look like she wasn't even in town.
Mm-hmm. That's a
Let's
good
see.
point, Sandra. Same would apply to Brandon. How would Melanie explain someone shot and killed her ex, right?
Right.
She wouldn't have. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So then on October 18th, and so this is the night Tammy dies, Alex's device is at Chick-fil-A in Ammon from 7:58 to 9:32 p.m. And then his device shows up at the Salem Church from 10:07 to 10:45 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next data point is on Highway 20 in Rexburg. So again, he leaves his phone in his car. He goes to the Daybell house. He assists Chad in murdering Tammy, and then he goes back to his car where his phone is, and he leaves.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's where Blake finished with this witness. And I mean, this was powerful stuff. I think he laid out some things, made things much clearer for why they absolutely know that Alex and Chad did these murders, and how they know they were both present at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're not hearing about Chad's phone pings because Chad has his location data turned off.
Yeah, there aren't any.
Yeah.
The thing is, though,
The only
he
pings
was
we
at
have
his
from
own
Chad.
house.
Yeah. The pings we have is just from the texts and phone calls that he was making.
Yeah.
And those we do know.
Yeah. We do know those things, just like, he's sending the raccoon text just as Alex is leaving his house after they've buried Tylee. Or done something with Tylee.
Yeah.
So then we get to Pryor. And I don't even know what this all was. Like, Pryor just basically goes all the way back through the questions that the prosecutor asked. And I don't even know why. His cross in this situation, it didn't make any sense at all. I was like, what are you gaining from any of this?
Except
other
for
than
the
it's supposed to be
camaraderie.
all Alex.
The camaraderie, though. Pryor cracking jokes, talking about, I'm too old of a guy, you're too young of a guy.
Yes.
He was 2 seconds from asking this guy to go fishing later. I mean,
He was, that's true.
the camaraderie kills me. The cold, abrupt way he comes across to the women on the stand versus the chummy way he comes across to the men is so telling.
It is, and it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And every woman in that room recognizes it. Whether the men do or not, the women do.
You bet they do, yeah.
So he asks about the searches of the Daybell property. He asks about the apartments being searched in Rexburg. Then he asks about the Yellowstone trip. And then he's asking a little bit about the accuracy of the device movement. And FBI guy is just, explaining, like, they only track the ones that have a low, what's the word? A low margin of error. Yeah. Anything that has a high margin of error, they don't put it in. It's only low margin of error. Because he's trying to include things that they believe to be accurate. He talks about Alex's devices on September 8th and 9th. I don't know. Somehow thinking all of this, reviewing all of Alex's stuff, somehow exonerates Chad, and it just doesn't.
Partly because the jury's not going to blame a ghost. They want to blame a live, warm body.
Right. Agreed. They're going to hold this person accountable because that's who's present.
But Kim made a comment that I thought was great and worth saying. She said it would have been police malpractice to not suspect Chad, right?
Right.
And especially in Tammy's murder, considering the statistics of women being murdered and how often it is their partner.
Exactly.
The way he's always so offended about, well, who else did they look at? Well, did they investigate Melanie Gibb enough? And stuff.
Yes.
And acting again offended that they actually investigated Chad. Why wouldn't they
Right.
investigate Chad?
There was every
Yeah.
reason to investigate him. It was his wife, and then the bodies of the children were found on his property. You can't unring those bells. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just so ridiculous.
Yep.
And the implication of Melanie Gibb and David Warwick is so stupid because what would possibly be their motive to be involved in any of these murders?
Right.
They don't
Yeah.
have one. There is no motive. The people who have motive are Chad and Lori, and
Mm-hmm.
by default, Alex,
Yeah.
because he was their enforcer.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree, Lion. Pryor does not recognize his own misogyny. No,
Oh no.
because he sometimes tries to belly up to women in the creepiest, weirdest ways that women are all like, whoa, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
2
what the
times
fuck is
we've heard
this?
him say, "I saw that smile," or "That's such a beautiful smile."
Yeah.
No,
That's
no,
a huge red
no.
flag to all of us,
Yeah.
man. You start talking about our smiles, and we're going to kick you in the nuts if we have the opportunity. I mean, I know the jury can't, but they want to when
But
he
smile's
says
a
things
hot
like
button,
that.
bro. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. 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 Women do see right through him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So, there's just more of this going through the various data points and what apartments he was coming and going from. And, Chad's just typing away on his computer like always. He had absolutely
Mm-hmm.
no reaction to new discussion of Tammy's autopsy. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Stone faced.
Yep.
Um,
They were
and then
chattier today, though, Chad and Pryor.
yeah,
Yesterday,
he
they
wasn't as
were,
pulled away.
yeah, they were very cold to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of started that way, but by the afternoon, they were leaning in close and chatting quite a bit and whispering to each
Mm-hmm.
other and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some dumb argument about the gate on one side of the Daybell property versus the long driveway on the other, where he was
Mm-hmm.
asking him all these questions, and I just wanted that FBI guy to go, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you tell us you own it? Because
Yeah.
it's like, and it's just pointless shit that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with any of this.
Yep.
Um, Asking him things he didn't know the answer to that he wasn't a part of the investigation for. That just went
Yep.
on and on and on
The
and on and on.
luminol.
The the luminol thing. He just keeps, and is his point that they've never found blood? Is that what he's trying to say? That they don't know where Tammy or where Tylee was dismembered and there's not blood anywhere? Is that the point? Because if it is, it's not very clear.
No, it's not going well. Well, and
No.
I will give you that. Let's see who said that. Denise. I agree with Pryor on the Gibb Warwick issue. I don't think they killed anyone, but I think Melanie knows a lot more than she says. Absolutely. I'll agree with
Oh
you
yeah,
with that 100%. Yeah.
me too. She knows, but I don't
Yep.
think she committed any of these murders. And David Warwick
Mm-hmm.
definitely didn't commit any of these murders.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
dude can barely speak English. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. He wanted to know who
Poor
was living at the
David.
house on September 9th.
Yeah.
Okay. And what their work schedules were and stuff.
Right.
And then he wanted to know, if he knew about Chad going to the Salem Church or BYU, Idaho every single morning to write.
Mm-hmm.
And Wright said he was not aware of Chad's schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pryor wanted to know what Alex drove to Yellowstone. He said it was a silver gray Ford F-150 pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it, he does this testing where he's asking him questions to try to discredit him if he doesn't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's asking him questions about things that he wasn't part of that part of the investigation. Why would he know?
Right. And also, we've heard from people who do know. The jurors are going, well, we've already heard somebody else say that and answer that
Right.
question.
Yeah.
PJV said, I'm a little behind, but couldn't have Chad uh, dug JJ's grave a day or so ahead of time. Oh, I think he did. I think you're right
He,
about that. I think
he
he was
very well
working
could
on it
have.
for a couple of days. He had those boards laid over top of it.
Yeah.
So I think he did. He was laying the rocks down and putting the boards over it and kind of just working on it a little bit for a few days. I think that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And prepping for this.
Hmm.
Because they were there. Alex was at their house such a short amount of time that day.
Hmm.
Obviously, they just put the body in the ground and buried him and covered him back up.
Well, and contacted Chad either, I can't remember if it was by text or by phone, right before he got there or right before he came
Yeah.
to let him
Like,
know. And then
I'm
Chad
on my
probably
way.
trotted out there and pulled the boards and the rocks apart and was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Kim? Pryor has had a ton of time to prepare,
Yeah.
but he still doesn't really come up with anything of value on cross.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of times he hurts himself on cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did he get that past all the people living in that house? He had some story, I'm sure. He
Hmm.
was out there doing something, and he was covering it up with boards, and
Or
so.
they just weren't home. Garth was
Mhm.
substitute teaching at two different schools. Tammy was teaching and was gone all day, and then clearly was had a lot of activities going on at night and on the weekends too, or
Yeah.
in the evenings. I'm
Yeah.
guessing they just weren't home. Just didn't know. And especially JJ's back behind that tree. It's clear up against the fence line and under a tree. I'll bet nobody ever went back there for any
Yeah.
reason.
Especially, it's starting to get colder.
Yeah.
It's later in the year. It's the time in which we all kind of stop using our yards because it's cold.
Hmm.
It's not like the ground's not frozen yet, but by the end of September, not really
Hmm.
fire pit time anymore, not really sitting outside time anymore. It's too cold.
Hmm. Yeah. One of you asked way earlier in the show why they didn't check Chad's property sooner. I have a couple of thoughts on that. One is just simply that it was covered in snow.
Yeah.
The other is I wonder if they actually didn't think Chad was that goddamn dumb.
At first,
Because,
right. I mean, they were looking at Yellowstone and,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but at the same time, they're this stupid. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Pryor did ask some questions we, I think, have all wondered about the raccoon text. He wanted to know if anybody had heard a gunshot in the area that day.
Hmm.
Um, but because police had talked to some neighbors, but that didn't really turn anything up. And they didn't have that text until 8 months later, so they
Hmm.
weren't necessarily asking for that specifically.
No. But
Then,
again, a gunshot out there is not going to raise much suspicion. That's
not
not
at
like if
all.
somebody shot a gun in the middle of town. This is out in the country. People shoot guns all the
Yeah,
time. It just
right.
wouldn't make people go, whoa, someone just shot a gun. Where did that come from?
Yeah,
Not at
no,
all.
you'd hear rifle shots out there a lot, I would imagine.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, then, of course, Pryor has to get into the animal remains in the pet cemetery
Hmm.
and asking Wright, who did not do this part of the investigation, he's
Hmm.
obviously one of the tech guys, um, about what type of animals were found in the pet cemetery. And we
Hmm.
didn't remember for sure. We know it's a dog and a cat, and not a raccoon.
Hmm.
That's what we know from the
Hmm.
people who do know.
Yeah. Yeah, they searched Chad's house in January, and they actually searched his yard around where Tammy was shot at with metal detectors, but they were in quite a bit of snow. Yeah.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
There is a neighbor who died suspiciously whose family has been very, very offended by any conversations around it. We did
Yeah.
do a story on it really early on and uh, kind of got our asses kicked front, left, and center.
Mm-hmm.
but uh,
Yeah.
but yes, there was. Yes, there was.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's no that has never been officially connected to these deaths by the
No,
police, so
no.
we don't know for sure. It wasn't died suspiciously; it was died unattended.
Hmm.
It wasn't
Of pulmonary
really.
edema.
Yeah, it was pulmonary edema.
Hmm.
But at the time, it wasn't necessarily considered suspicious, and it's not been investigated by the police, as far as we know.
Hmm. Right, no raccoon, and no one has ever said that they found a raccoon.
No, there's never been a raccoon found out there. That
No.
whole text was a cover, and
Mm-hmm.
he blew his cover with that text.
Yep.
Right, Maureen? Oh, Kim says, I think they were hoping that the kids would get too close to a geyser, right? Well, or like a hot pot.
See, I wondered too if Yellowstone was the first plan, but they got up there, and I'm guessing that they thought because it was towards the end of the season that it wouldn't be that busy up there. But when they got there, they discovered that that place was rocking because
It's never
Yellowstone
not busy
is
there when it's
never not
open.
busy. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So let's see. Uh, then he, of course, has to bring up Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. And is this agent aware that Alex's device was at Lori's house on September 22nd? And so were Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. And he wants to know if he looked into correspondence between Lori, Melanie Gibb, and David Warwick from the
Mm-hmm.
early morning hours. Wright says he didn't, but he believes other investigators did, which they did,
Mm-hmm.
and they cleared them.
Mm-hmm.
They were investigated and cleared, and Pryor just doesn't want that to be true, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Melanie Gibb even gave DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see. Um. Oh, so then Pryor brings up the September 23rd, 2019, at 4:37 a.m. text from Melanie Gibb to Lori. We sent this to Chad about 2 a.m. this morning. David woke up with great pain and sorrow in his heart. He felt something big was going to happen. It was going to happen now or soon. Please call when you can. Maybe you can help him understand it. Whatever it was, this was immediate. He can't get to these people, and there's nothing he could do for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we know that Melanie tried to open Lori's bedroom door, and it was locked.
Mm-hmm. And
And
that
couldn't
she
get anyone
called
to
and
come through
texted
the door.
Lori. Yeah.
Yes.
And nobody was answering the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Pryor asks Wright if he knows where JJ Vallow was that evening, and Wright says that
Mm-hmm.
from reports he heard that JJ was with Alex that night, which is
Mm-hmm.
what we do know to be true.
Yeah.
He wants to know if there's electronic evidence that Chad was on the property on September 23rd at 9:41 a.m. Wright says he saw no information showing Chad's whereabouts that morning,
Mm-hmm.
except that Alex had texted Chad that morning, and
Mm-hmm.
they'd been in communication before Alex arrived at his property. Let's see. Oh, that he wants to get into the distance from everything. He wants to know the distance from the garage to the barn in the back.
Mm-hmm.
He says he doesn't know, but he thinks it's at least 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
He Pryor also wants to know if he's aware that JJ was found in a shallow grave.
Mm-hmm.
Then Pryor goes through the timeline on September 23rd of Alex's phone on the Daybell property. And that's the end of the day.
It's not the first time we heard about the text in the dream. It's kind of.
Yeah.
We heard about it in Lori's trial. They didn't give details of the dream when they had Melanie or David on the stand. Today was
Yeah.
the first day we heard that text. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, David knew something was up. I mean, he was worried about JJ. He tried to insist on seeing him the next morning to know that he was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had some awareness
Mm-hmm.
of something.
Oh, he was the
We
most
don't know
adulty
what.
adult there for sure.
He was. He had concern for JJ the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was the one that said that when JJ was acting out, Chad took him upstairs, which I think is such a bunch of bullshit. Chad had known that kid for
Mm-hmm.
a handful of weeks at this point, and he's the one taking him upstairs to deal with him.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? And Chad comes back downstairs with JJ, and he's got a scratch on his neck because JJ has scratched him.
Mm-hmm.
And what did he do to get that scratch? Don't we
Yeah.
all wish we knew?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
but yeah,
first,
some
Tylee
people have
didn't
thought,
like Chad. You know,
yes,
Tylee didn't like Chad, and then JJ scratched Chad.
And now the kids are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and what was I going to say? I don't know. Oh, questions about, did David Warwick overhear something, you know,
Right.
or why was he upset?
Mm-hmm.
But he was. Right, David didn't report anything. I think at that point he just didn't know if there was anything to report.
Right. He just had a bad dream. Yeah.
Well, and Lori was just like, well, he's with Alex. He's not here. You can't see him. And
Yeah. Yeah.
oh yeah, Tylee did have discernment. She knew this was bullshit from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we've all, any of us that have had teenagers, that are 16, especially girls,
Mm-hmm.
they will tell you what's up, coming and
They
going.
will.
And I'm sure
Absolutely.
she had sassed the hell out of Lori about all of this stuff. I am sure she was very clear that there was an affair happening here and that she had
Yes.
talked shit about it. I'm sure she had all of those things
Well,
because
and then her mom drags
of
her
her age.
away from
Yep.
her town and her friends to
Her
go live in
job,
this
her
weird
family.
place. And she doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
why. And then her mom takes her money. She'd been allowed to
Mm-hmm.
have her social security money all along, and then mom takes that away.
Mm-hmm. Also, the dog had gotten rid of Bailey, who was JJ's service dog, but I'm sure that Tylee loved that dog too and had a lot of
Right.
love with that dog, and the dog was gone now too. It's like Lori just stripped her down to nothing again, which she had done to her multiple times in her life.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
she hated Chad. I'm sure she hated Melanie. I'm sure she hated all of her weird, dumb friends.
Yeah.
She had had it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right that David is hard of hearing. And
Hmm.
so maybe he didn't feel anything. But why did that weird dream thing happen? Or was that a cover for something else?
Yeah.
We don't know. Right, Tylee was there for a murder because of her mom. Her
Hmm.
stepdad
Yep.
killed for this bullshit after
Yep.
her own dad was also killed. And, like,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. She said, I'm not a zombie mom in the background of a phone call. Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Colleen says, oh, I know. I don't date because my 17-year-old daughter knows what's up. Yep.
Right.
You bet. Yep.
Well, yeah, Kim. There is proof of that
Yeah.
actually. That Lori caused a lot of Tylee's illnesses when they were in Texas. There was a child protection case open on them, and Tylee actually spent some time in a hospital. And Tylee had a guardian ad litem, and a long time ago, somebody leaked a psychological evaluation or report from
Hmm.
somebody who was evaluating this family, and that is exactly what that report says, is that Tylee's problems are coming directly from her mother, and that there was a great deal of body shaming that went on with Tylee and controlling of what she ate, and Tylee kept getting pancreatitis,
Hmm.
you know and having all these other ailments and stuff, and having stress related illnesses.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I would have to hunt it up, but I think I have that somewhere.
I have it.
That the report, you've got it.
I have it right
Yeah,
now. Yeah. I'll put a link in the chat if anybody wants to go read it, but it was posted on Reddit a few
that's
years
right.
ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's kind of shitty because it is a private thing, but in this situation I think that it helps us understand why things were the way they were with Tylee. I mean, they
Hmm.
literally CPS in Texas installed cameras in Lori's house to witness how she was parenting Tylee.
Hmm.
She was hugely problematic.
Hmm.
Right, right, Deanna. Could she have been poisoning Tylee, giving her something? Why was she? Oh, why did she always get pancreatitis? That's not common in teenagers,
No.
you know. Or was it literally just the stress of her mother body shaming her? Or yeah, was it a Munchausen by proxy situation where she was literally making her ill?
Well, it was
It
a
was her fault either way.
it was a part of the custody fight with Joe Ryan that he
Hmm.
can't take her because he won't feed her properly.
Yeah,
He can't take her because he doesn't know how to take care of her and she's having these problems. Yeah, it was all a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Sandy, you bet. It's interesting. It's an interesting read. It's fairly long, but
It
it's an
is.
interesting read.
It is. It really explains that those folks knew absolutely
Hmm.
that Lori was Tylee's problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Debbie said, could it be that the night that Tammy died, Alex drove to the church, left his phone in truck, and Chad pick Alex up, and Alex hid on property till the murder? Yeah, it's absolutely
It could
possible.
be, but I kind of doubt it. I bet he walked.
He could
I
have.
bet he
He easily
walked
could
so
have.
that Chad could be home setting up the story around how all of this occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And just, that was one less thing that anyone could have witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
Right, frequent vomiting and her stress can affect the pancreas, right?
Yeah,
Maybe Tylee was binging or purging or something. I've,
maybe.
I've really wondered if this was related to an eating disorder of some kind that was
Mm-hmm.
caused by her mother.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Sherry says, I think David was on Ambien because he was traveling. He walked in on something and later thought it was a dream. I mean, anything
Mm.
is possible at this point because those two are covering their own asses, and we know they are.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
don't think they killed anyone, but did they know? They knew something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. But I really appreciated what happened today in all of that location stuff about putting some things together for us in a way that hadn't really been put together before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to assume that there's some kind of a presentation that goes along with that timeline that is part of closing arguments in this case.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting that Hermosillo was there today because we've been saying all along we think that Hermosillo will be the last witness on the stand. He was the first
Mm-hmm.
one. We think he'll be the last one to wrap up the story. Remember that they laid this out in the opening statements as a book,
Yes.
and they went chapter by chapter.
Yep.
And then they put Hermosillo on the stand, and he basically laid
Mm-hmm.
out the table of contents. And now I think he's going to come in for the conclusion. And I could be wrong, but that's what I think is going to happen.
I think you're right. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be something like that, and that yeah, they follow that same theme in the closing statements.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right, they didn't have a chance once Charles was gone. It's true.
Yeah. Kim, they did not. She wanted to know if Pura Vida ever got back to us. They didn't, but interestingly, I saw somebody else on the internet say that they also had approached Pura Vida. So it wasn't just us. So maybe somebody will get through to
Well, you
them.
never know. Maybe
Yeah,
that it would be a great thing if they could.
it would be wonderful. Yeah.
Right, there was fear from Lori that Joe Ryan was going to get custody of Tylee, and that's when Alex attacked him.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Lion says the he couldn't get to them statement about David Warwick. Could that maybe connect to Lori's bedroom being locked? Right.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just wild. Well,
Yeah.
that's everything that we have for tonight.
Yeah.
And tomorrow night, do you want to talk to us about
Yes.
again about
The
what
watch
we're going to be doing
party.
tomorrow night for watch party?
So tonight the update show will be at 7 because it's Wednesday nights, and 7 is always our Wednesday night live, and so we haven't changed that during this trial because we're trying to keep something normal. But it is the third Wednesday of the month, which means it's also time for the watch party. It's just really early because the first was on a Wednesday, so it's
Yeah.
early in the month. But so at 8:15 tomorrow night, if you're one of our subscribers or our memberships on YouTube,
And this is
you
for
can.
everybody on there. I know there are some different memberships. We're struggling with YouTube to
Mhm.
edit those, so just everybody that subscribe is a member over there gets this.
Yeah. So we're watching the program Cons, Colts, and Kidnapping. Episode 1, Where the Fuck Am I? This is
This is
about kids
good.
that were taken to Academy at the Ivy, which was one of those, bad teenagers schools.
Yeah. Schools with air quotes for sure.
hmm So here's how it works. This is on Netflix. You go find it. You watch it on your device. We'll watch it on our device, but there will be a stream just like this setup, only on YouTube, and you'll only be able to see it if you are a part of our membership. And the chat is open, so we'll all just watch it and stream it in our own homes, and drink wine and eat popcorn and chat together while we watch it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's even more fun when there's lots of people there. So,
Uh huh.
if you are a member, please join us. And if you're not a member, you can become one
hmm
easily.
Oh yeah.
Uh, the homepage of YouTube, just there's a join button,
hmm
or there's the $ button. I think on if you're on the app. Either way, it gives you the chance to do that. So,
hmm Yeah.
yeah, it is a really good series. So
Yeah.
we'll be sharing that, and of course, we'll be back at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning for more court to see what the
Yeah.
hell's going on next.
Right. So we'll finish up with this agent first thing in the morning on Cross, and then we'll see
What are
who
we
the
gonna
state
see?
calls.
Yeah,
Is it Hermosillo?
is it? I know when that got mixed up today, I was like, oh, he must be up soon.
hmm
So we shall see.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much for being here, whether you've been here live or after the fact.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Go to truecrimesquad.com to support us, and also to join our Discord if you haven't yet. We're having a great time over
Yeah.
there. Come join that and check out our Patreon. We have somebody was saying they're bummed because they've caught all the way up on our episodes. Well, guess what? If you go over to Patreon, there's like 100 more. So
Yeah.
that's something else to do if you're looking for more to listen to or watch. So,
Amber Stradlin's stabbing. Tracy, I'll make a note of it right now.
all right. Well, and with that, you know it. We are the True Crime Squad. Thanks for being here.
Take care.